This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Mary Meeks knows what we should all know about how to elect a person to office, but the fact is, we all don't know. But if you read her book, How to Navigate the Election Process and Select Your Candidates, you will have a much better idea.
You know what? This book actually was prompted by a friend. Leading up to election season, she would always call and say, Mary, how do I know who to vote for? And I'd walk her through the process. So basically, what I found is that people want to participate in the election process and they want to make a difference. But they're busy with their lives, taking care of aging parents or taking care of their careers or their children or whatnot. And they just aren't familiar with the process of what to do. Maybe they'll get a flyer in the mail or they'll see on social media who to vote for or whatever. And it's kind of haphazard. But my book, How to Navigate the Election Process, solves all that. It simplifies it and it gives people a chance to just jump right in because it just walks you through the process. In short, it's like a recipe. First of all, I have to make sure they're registered to vote. You have to know what's important to you, what matters to you in a candidate. And then I show you how to identify who is on your ballot. I mean, how many people have shown up on election day and be like, who is this person? What? We're voting on this local measure, and just to be surprised. And so I show you how to get that information before election day. Then I walk you through how to research candidates and then show you how to compare or to discern what is the best choice based on what's important to you.
How is your process different from what's already out there that's available to us that still people don't bother?
Right? No.
You know what I mean? It's like we had ranked choice voting here in New York City, right? There were 8 candidates. 8 candidates. Now, I was familiar with most of them because I've covered them and I've been in, news for a while. So, but the average person, I mean, you Google them, but really, how much do you know about them? That takes some real digging.
It does. And I encourage people to go to primary sources, because when we just do a Google search, then we're dependent on what Google wants us to see. But if you go straight to a source, you dig around and look for a candidate's actual website and not like a wiki site that other people can manipulate. Or if you can talk to a candidate directly, if it's something local like a school board or something, then you can ask the questions. The other thing is to consider who supports them. I do talk a little bit about advertising and help people discern when they might be manipulated or what types of things advertisers use to pull on their emotions. I help people understand common election words like midterms, runoffs, primaries. I'll give you a sports analogy on this one. General elections are like the championship games, but a primary election is more like the semifinals, and that determines who will represent that group at the final matchup. So the primary elections, a lot of people don't realize how important they are.
You find people in politics and you go, how the heck did they get there?
Right.
Well, they got there because they had a great name or they had great name recognition, and nobody really did any research, and enough of us don't do any research that nutballs get in office.
You know, one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is that our form of government is a republic. A lot of people say, oh, democracy, but it's not. It's a constitutional republic. It's even in our pledge, and to the republic for which it stands, right?
Yeah, well, we don't say the pledge anymore, so that could be a problem.
Well, yeah, maybe that's the problem.
See, that's why the Electoral College. Why do we have to have an Electoral College? What is that about? And it's like, well, because we're a republic. That's why we have the Electoral College.
Right. The thing is, in a democracy, the voice of the minority is squashed, whereas in a republic, it protects the voice of the minority. Because if we were a democracy, if one party got in power, they could just be in power forever. So I think it's important that people understand we are a constitutional republic for sure. And my book also would be useful for civics classes, because it helps people understand the basics. It's not enough to be the entire textbook, but it could be stirred into or included in a civics class very easily, because my longest chapter is only 7 pages. And you can read the chapters in all different order. It's good for people who are new voters, and it's good for just smart people who want to make a difference, but they want their vote to make the greatest impact.
All right, Mary, thanks. A retired teacher and principal in Northern California, William Hartwick has learned to live with Tourette's, and he documents one impressive journey in his book, The Invisible Backpack, A Life of Courage.
I started writing when I was a young child. I'm also illiterate in many ways. When I became a teacher in '93, I was wondering what these children had. What are we carrying around? What are we hiding? And the invisible backpack to me was something we all did. And over time, I found mine. Mine was pretty heavy with medication, all the things that happened throughout the story. I started writing as a young child in middle school, and that's the only way I could survive it, to get through it. And matter of fact, my 8th grade teacher called me Billy Aloysius Horatio Llewellyn Hobart Agamemnon Hartwick. You'll make it one day, but go to the office.
What?
Yeah. It's been my whole life. I write rhythmically. I've been able to demystify all written rules, including poetry. I don't use punctuation, I don't spelling. I didn't even know what a comma is for. Matter of fact, I wear a shirt that has 2 sharks on it, caricatures and a fish. Top and bottom, it says, "Let's eat, comma, Bob. Let's eat Bob, comma, save lives." That's kind of the way I live my life. It's actually a rhythmical story of my life. There are about 170 entries in this one. Each one is a different rhythmical moment. Most of them are 13, 12 lines and a title. It's just how it happened. That's the number of my life. It's 13. I actually have a few to share. And actually, last night I just recorded my audio trailer for my autobiography. It's called Normal, Basic, and Average. Not. And I just got the 9-minute trailer out to LA this morning to a friend of mine down there that's serious about a screenplay.
So give me an example of what you're talking about.
I'm going to start with, I think, one of my favorites. It's called Teaching. So you want to be a teacher, educate the leaders to be. Someone has to take on that responsibility. How can you expect our kids to survive on their own if to them our knowledge we never ever loan? It's not an easy task, the one mentioned above. It starts in the home with a concept called love. You can have a bachelor's of science or a master's in fine art, but it takes a doctorate in life to set great teachers apart. Unless you're willing to learn from those who already know, you've put limitations on yourself, never allowing one to grow. For teaching is not always in a classroom at school. It's a sharing of life's experience. It's the valuable tool. I have made the choice to commit my life to teach, and every child that needs my love, out to them I do reach. If you have made the same decision in your mind and in your heart, give the kids a fighting chance by offering them a head start.
Okay, so it's these vignettes.
Everything, yeah. I'm sitting in Southern Oregon right now, the southernmost county of Brookings, Oregon, at a beach. But my hometown is 20 minutes from here in California. And it's called Del Norte County. It goes like this. It says, "This earth we live on is such a beautiful place. It's indicated by the smile on your face. From the tip of a river tree at the highest mountain top, where the river meets the ocean, life doesn't stop. The air up here is as pure as snow. The people are relaxed, which is precious, you know. If you've never been, you have to come and see a special place that is dear to me. God's country is how it's known. To me, fortunately, it is my home." And that's where I am recording today for you.
So you're gonna record all these for your audiobook?
No, my audiobook's called Normal, Basic, and Average. Not, and it's its own entirety. It's my life story. Matter of fact, I just recorded the 9-minute and 38-second trailer last night. It's one rhyme, one rhythmical from birth to today, and it's going to be a rhythmical screenplay, which has never been done before. I have the first rhyming, one self-contained, solid rhythmical for one solid movie, about an hour and a half of my story. Yeah. My nickname in college was Twitch for Tourette's, and so the second edition of Invisible Backpack is going to be called Twitch 2, and it's ready to go. When I submit the page, about 70 more entries, and then I have 3 children's books coming out next year with you folks, hopefully. I wrote way back when, and then the auto is the big one right now. I think that's what's making the way down Southern California. That some people are really grabbing onto it quickly and want me to. Well, they want to get involved, and I'm going cautious. I have a really good friend down there who's taking it by the hand, so he's in the industry. So
all right, and the last we heard, Hartwick was walking from Northern California to Hollywood on a 40-day journey to hand deliver his screenplay. Mary Lee Briggs is a nurse practitioner in Pueblo, Colorado. She wrote a book when she was a kid, and her dad wouldn't let her publish it. But her dream never died, and now she has published Second Chance.
I started following a band, actually. and their music spoke to me, and it made me think of what a real love could be. And so I developed a love story out of the fantasy that started with music. It took me a year to write it once I decided to write it, but that wasn't until I actually was able to partially retire and take care of my grandchildren. And then I actually sat down and wrote it. It's about this physician who hasn't been a physician very long, but she's very bored and tied down with her life. And she decides that she's going to take a different road. Her first love in life is photography. So she decides to put in for a job to work, with a band, and she actually gets the job. And the story is about the two people, their love coming together. But not only that, there's explosions that happen around them all the time that they're trying to grow this relationship that they have. It deals with a couple of domestic kind of situations and domestic violence, and it deals with restraining your child in the car because, of course, I'm the provider, so I always think of children first. But it's just that love story. It's just, and I have to tell you, whenever I feel like I need something extra, I go pick up my book and I read about Ryan and Emma, and it just makes my day better.
You read it again and again.
I do, and now I'm writing a sequel to it.
Good for you.
Well, it leaves you hanging. It's definitely a cliffhanger at the end.
I mean, it sounds like you're hooked on these two.
I am. I'm very much in love with their love.
Does this in any way parallel your life?
I think the only way that it really does that is with the burnout, and realizing that when you're in medicine in any way, you get burned out, and you want to find something that will give you back your life. And for me, it's not the photography, it's the writing.
How are you telling people about this?
Well, we've put it out on Facebook. We've had book signings. When we got back from vacation, we're deciding that even though it's been out for almost 2 years now, that we really want to get in there and see if we can get it going again, because we want to produce this next book within the next couple of months.
Who's we?
My husband and I. He's my support. He's my backbone. He's the one that says, this is wonderful, I love this, or yeah, maybe we could change that a little bit. But he's always right there for me when I need somebody. I know I'm very lucky. And I have wonderful children. They're all backing me. They read my book, which is great. Only, a couple of them are like, Mom, I don't want to know your fantasies. But yeah, it was really, really, it's fun. It's something that I've needed for a long time.
Talk about a labor of love. Stick with it, Mary Lee. Coming up, healing trauma for pets and people with therapeutic touch. Ever heard of that? Well, you will. Right after this.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything. Copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
And we're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Catherine Jarek Manetti is a registered nurse and a nursing instructor, trained in Gestalt psychotherapy, EMDR trauma therapy, and she's a qualified therapeutic touch practitioner, which is what inspired her book, A Clarion Call to Compassion, Healing Embodied Trauma with Therapeutic Touch.
Based on my personal and professional experiences and expert therapeutic touch practitioners over 21 years, I chronicled them because I felt that I had an ethical obligation to share these experiences and this possibility of alleviating human suffering, and also feel that I've had an ethical obligation to share them, as well as the potential of developing additional methods of helping people recover from trauma, all types of trauma. Part 1 talks about therapeutic touch, the healing modality itself. Part 2 are all the case vignettes, the actual experiences that I had with animals, with humans, my nursing students' experiences, professional colleagues' experiences, as well as the expert therapeutic touch practitioners' experiences. Those came from my doctoral dissertation research. And then the third part is entitled Finishing Empathic Touches, what is actually happening during therapeutic touch. So these are all true stories. For the most part, there were always witnesses. I'll give you just one example about, engaging in the TT process with an animal. 21 years ago, while practicing TT and integrating Gestalt therapy and my own trauma therapy, as well as my nursing background, I was experiencing visual imagery in color. And I knew that it wasn't my stuff, because I had experiences that I had never had before. And then because of the process, the healing process, there's an alchemy, an alchemical process where the bodily stored wound, if you will, or the trauma experience is released. The practitioner visualizes it. And then after, you're realigning the field, this is like a 20-minute session, right? And what happens, and it can be done by distance too, so what happens is one's positive lived experience that's also stored in their body seems to transmute and release the negative experience, the trauma experience. So to give you an example, Miss Emily, an English bulldog, she was the mascot of my karate school, Taekwondo. She was limping on her back rear leg. And I noticed it over like 2 weeks. So I asked, what happened to her? He said she jumped off the back deck and she hurt her leg and it hasn't been healing. Noticing, observing her limp, after one class, I began to engage in TT with her. And very quickly, like spontaneously, she lay on her side, her paws up in the air, and she began to snooze. She fell asleep. And as I'm working on her and the students are kneeling around and they're watching, she began to like twist and writhe a little bit. And the students said, look, her spine is realigning itself. And so as I'm working on her, I received the imagery in color of a child's pool. So then I finished the session, and then she woke up and she shook herself out and she went trotting away. I noticed the following week that she was no longer limping. So I said to our master, so what happened to her? What significance does a pool have for her? He said when she was about a year old and she was a pup, we were at a party. There was an in-ground pool. And he said, I noticed that she was in the pool sinking to the bottom of the pool. And I jumped in and I saved her. Now, English bulldogs are the only breed that cannot swim. So I said to him, that's the significance. That's what's keeping her from healing. So she had a bodily stored traumatic event, almost drowning in this pool. But the positive lived experience was a child's pool because she loves the children and she loves being around children. What happens is the stored memory comes up, in imagery, and then there's the positive lived experience that transmutes that. And after that, she stopped limping.
That's really amazing, Catherine. Very interesting stuff. Thank you. A sculpture and art history college professor, Stephen Lloyd Auslander, always wrote his own textbooks in simple English. Now he's turned his attention to writing about a guy named Theo who's expected to come up with a streamlined steam engine for a 2-bit third-rate feeder railroad in the county of Hogwaller, or else lose his comfy family position. The name of his book, The Streamlined Locomotive.
When I was working for my master's in sculpture at the Art Institute of Chicago, I have these ideas, and I have my idea of reality. And I got together one day with a buddy. He was going for a master's in cinematography. And we produced a couple underground movies, 16 millimeter sound. So I wrote the scripts on both of these. And when I moved up to Connecticut, I got a job teaching in the State University System of New York. I started teaching computer drafting. In my artwork, I'm a surrealist. In my writing, I'm a surrealist. The novel I wrote, it's realistic and it's surrealistic at the same time. And it concerns a person, Theophilus P. Bezelbottom, who's the scion of a wealthy family of old-fashioned robber barons and leaders of industry. He wants to lead a nice, indolent, irresponsible existence, doing as little as possible to maintain his common law wives, children, and girlfriends, and an easygoing life. And he's going to inherit of the main part of one of the major railroads, as well as control of Hogwaller, which is in the county somewhere in Appalachia. You know, he's trying to do as little as possible to keep out of from being fired, because the rest of the relatives want him to do something. By the way, the novel originated when I invented the last name Bezelbottom, and from that part, the whole thing spread out. It all grew from basically, what am I going to do with this name?
It's a great name.
Really, that's how it worked. So the first character was Throckmorton P. Bezelbottom, and he was the robber baron type. Then come my main character in the book, Theophilus P. Bezelbottom, Uncle Aloysius P. Bezelbottom. So it's like a conflict. They're trying to get him to work, and he's trying to avoid it.
They want him to take over the whole shebang here.
Basically, they expect him to do some work, and they keep putting pressure on him. So the whole story is about the pressure they put on him that he has to do things, and him doing it. He actually has to do it because he realizes this is like 1939, and the world's just going into World War II, and we haven't been involved in the war yet, but everybody knows we're going to. So they say, either you do a lot of work, or we're going to let you be drafted, and we'll make sure that you stay drafted, and you'll be a private, and you'll be in combat. And so he really has to work. And so he actually, he and his common law wife, Peggy May seduced him when they were both 12, and now they have children. And they also, she has boyfriends, he has girlfriends, her mother. And of course, they have their own mansion for raising the kids, being, they're so wealthy. It is a series. I'm working on the second one now.
How many do you think you're going to have?
At least 4 or 5.
All right, so more Bezelbottoms to come. Thanks, Stephen. Since Christos Dijonis was a teenager, he was fascinated by Atlantis and the city of Troy, which was considered an imaginary place until its exact geographic location was discovered. So he figured the same could be true of Atlantis. He did the research and wrote Atlantis, the find of a lifetime.
The whole thing started with me reading and understanding Plato. You cannot go by what other people are telling you on TV or in books, or besides, every book you read on Atlantis right now is nothing but fiction. So you have to read the story for what it is and understand it for what it is. And in order to do that, it took me to study, kind of refresh my Greek, and read the original Greek version and compare it to the English versions that we do a lot of studying from. And I realized immediately that most English translations are wrong. Not only they were interpreted wrong, but the way the interpretation was done word by word is completely different than what Greeks translate. For example, the syntactic structure, for example, of the Greek textbook, it's not the same way as the English translation we used to, the English language we used to translate it to. So most of the English translators from the very beginning translated the Greek word by word, and if it was that easy, by the way, we could have invented an app by now that you can punch in the Greek text and you can spell it out to you what the meaning is, and it's not. It don't work that way. You have to read it, understand it, and then translate it. And once you do, you properly use the right syntactic structure, you realize that is not what we've been told all these years. Atlantis is not where we thought it is. I went to that location and I started looking, and yes, I used the aid of satellite technology. I was looking for a place, for example, that was 400 feet in deep. You know, the oceans, rose by 400 feet. And once I started looking for something in around the depth of 400 feet, bingo, I found an island that sounded very promising, and then once I identified, again, with the satellite, I was able to identify the perimeter of the island. Then I was able to say, okay, what's next? And then I started comparing the Plato's description, region by region, valley by valley, down to the square kilometer, that everything was a perfect match. And it is. It's crazy, when you read Plato in detail and you read all the descriptions he's giving you, there's about 13, 14 clues you have to follow. If any of these aspects is not precisely in the right order, it does not fall in the right order of the size of the valley, for example, the Upland Valley, he said it was 555 square kilometers. If any of this stuff is off, basically you don't have anything. You have maybe some clues and lots of speculation, but you don't have concrete evidence that everything Plato said is here in this discovery. And I do. When you read my book, I take you by the hand, and I walk you through each and every clue, and basically I lay it in front of you and show you that this is it. This is what Plato was talking about.
Oh, Christos, I so love the story of Atlantis, and for all the work that you've put into this, I really hope you're onto something. I do. Wow, there was a lot of work to go around in this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club, no? I mean, we had everything. Fantasy, realism, adventure, inspiration, spirituality, you name it. We got it. We do it. We bring it every single week, or at least we try. We really do. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks to all the authors, and tell your friends to download the podcast at 710WOR.com. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. I'll catch you next time.